Hello guys, and welcome to this video on inheritance. So this is going to be the start of kind of our next little unit. And in this case, unfortunately, instead of inheriting money, we're just going to inherit some code. But I think you'll find this is still really useful. So let me first talk about why you would want to do this. Well, let's say you're making like a game, right? And in your game, you have several different types of characters. You have like the character that your person is playing as, you have the enemy characters, and maybe you have some ally characters. And all of those characters are going to share certain bits of codes, right? All of them will have a name. They'll all be able to attack. They'll all be able to jump. They'll all have a certain number of health. Now, if you had that same bit of code, what you might do is you might have some kind of system where you just copy paste it from one to another. But what if you wanted to automatically take all that code in one class and just automatically load that into another class? And the way to do that is called inheritance. So what this lets you do is this lets you inheritance is a way to copy over all code, and that means all of it, so all the variables and methods, into another class. So the setup for this might be, for example, like using the example we just talked about, you might have some kind of character class, and then that's where you would define all your different methods. And then down below that, maybe you have an enemy class, maybe you have like a computer class, and maybe you have an ally class. So I'm drawing these pictures, but these are all classes. So in this case, what we'd have character is what's called the superclass, also known as the parent class. And then the children who inherit from their parent, and even before it dies, these are called the subclass, or the subclasses. And sometimes you'll see those referred to as a child class. And another example you might have is you might, for example, later have, I don't know, let's talk about a zoo. You might have, for example, a mammal class. And there are different types of mammal, but all mammals have some things in common. And in that mammal, maybe we have a human. And then maybe we have, a dog. And then maybe we also have, I don't know, like a cat or something. And you can actually go further. You can have like subclass of subclasses. So maybe here, you have like a poodle, and then you have a terrier, and you can keep going. But it has the general idea that you have like, your superclass is mammal, and then down below it, you have these subclasses. Okay, so a couple things just to keep in mind. First off, all the code gets inherited down. But one thing I want you to think about is that, like, going up, these arrows, inheritance, should be an is-a relationship. So like an enemy is a character, a CPU is a character, an ally is a character, a human is a mammal, a dog is a mammal, a cat is a mammal, a poodle is a dog, a terrier is a dog. So inheritance should be, and it should be used with this is-a relationship. And again, that's an is-a relationship that goes up the chart. So these are called inheritance diagrams, and you'll see these sometimes, certainly. But the idea, again, is that that relationship goes up. So an ally is a character. A human is a mammal. And if you're thinking about whether inheritance is appropriate in your class, think of whether you're going to have this is-a relationship at some point. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's set this aside, and let's actually do some code. But I wanted to get some pictures down and describe that before I do some code. So what I've done here is I've created a dog class. So this dog is very simple. It has a constructor. This constructor, of course, just sets up the instance variables. And then it has a getLegs method that gets the number of legs. And then we have a bark class that just does woof woof. Okay. So that's our class. So now when I want to make a new class that extends this, so let's call this Chihuahua. I don't know why I picked that. It's really hard to spell. Okay, so if I want to do this, here's like your Chihuahua class. So I want Chihuahua to be a subclass of dog. So to say that I am inheriting from dog, where I define the class, I write extends dog. So right here, I'm going to write Chihuahua extends, notice how it's a special keyword in Java, extends dog. Okay, so my Chihuahua extends dog, and again, this compiles, and what that means is this automatically gets all the instance variables, all the methods, and even the zero argument constructor that is in dog. So, one thing also you'll notice on BlueJ, notice how this cool arrow signed up? You've seen the dash arrow, but you haven't seen the solid arrow, and now you do. And BlueJ, again in its wisdom, shows you this inheritance diagram. Chihuahua extends dog, so it shows an arrow from Chihuahua directly to dog. Okay, so let's go ahead now and talk about some things. So I can make a dog. So I'm going to do, dog. Let's name my dog growing up. Kenya was a new dog. She was very sweet. And then just using things. Yeah, we have a get legs and a bark. Oops. So I could call, for example, like Kenya.bark. Oops, it's a method. And I could print out, for example, Kenya.getLegs. Okay. And then that'll do exactly what I think, right? It'll print out whatever the bark says, woof woof, and then it'll give out that Kenya had 4 legs, which she did for her whole life, so that's terrific. Okay, now we could do the same thing with a Chihuahua. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those like classic Taco Bell commercials, but Taco Bell used to have some great Chihuahua commercials, which is too bad because their food is garbage. So you make a new Chihuahua, just like this, and you can call the same methods, you can call the dog methods, without actually putting any code there. So if I want to do, for example, like, c.bark, and then I'm going to print out this same thing and just print out the number of legs C has, this works, and it's going to do the exact same thing as it did with my dog object. Oops, with the Chihuahua object. So it still says woof woof, it still says 4. And again, this is interesting because I didn't write any actual code in the Chihuahua class. But just by extending dog, I automatically got all that code for free. That's the power of inheritance and why it's so special. Okay, now, of course, if I want to add features, I can add other methods. So these are Chihuahua-specific methods. So I can add, for example, a public boolean for likes tacos. Okay, so obviously all Chihuahuas like tacos according to the Taco Bell ad. So we'll just go ahead and return true. Now, of course, this will compile. I just added another method. But in the driver, I can call this method pretty easily by just saying, okay, I'm going to do c dot likes tacos. Okay, and that'll, of course, will compile, and I can run that bit of code, and it'll say true. Now, one thing worth noting is that this doesn't work the other way. So this method is not in dog, though. So if I tried to call for my dog variable, Kenya.likes tacos, you're going to see this doesn't actually compile. And it gives you this error, which says it cannot find the symbol. And that makes sense, right? Because this is just a dog. And if you look in the dog class, there is no method for likes tacos there. But it's in the Chihuahua class, and a Chihuahua is a dog. So that's why the Chihuahua gets all those. So it doesn't inherit it down. Dog does not get anything from its subclasses. And remember, dog is called the superclass. Okay, so that's something you can do. One thing also that you might want to do or notice is that public versus private is still in effect. So inside your Chihuahua class, notice public and private are still in effect. So the public methods in dog I can access here. So if part of my liking tacos I want to call bark, I can do that, right? I can call bark twice. And again, I am just calling I'm calling the public method in dog. But what you might want to know is that you can't actually do this with private. So for private variables, I cannot access them. Because if something is private in dog, it is only accessible in the dog class. So if I'm in here and I try and call, for example, like how many legs does this have? If I want to like change that, say to be 5, or something, you'll see this actually doesn't compile. And it gives you this error that says it has private access in dog. So that error that you have private access in dog just means you can't change it in this class. So we'll comment that out. And just notice this doesn't work because it's private. And if you want to access it here, you will have to write some kind of mutator and accessor methods in the dog class. And those obviously would need to be public, but you can't actually access the private. Okay, so that's the basics. I'll be back on more details in the next video. Thanks for watching.